Okay. So I'm here with Tracy.
Hi,
Tracy,
Mel.
can you just introduce yourself and explain kind of your course and then the kind of makeup of your students as well?
Okay. My name is Tracy Lee, and I teach culinary arts at Stow Monroe Falls High School, which is part of a 6 district compact. Our students, we have our students for 2 years. So we have our level 1, and we have approximately 20 to 25 students, and then we have level 2, same 20 to 25 students. Our students are, I would say they're a pretty broad makeup of students, educational levels, students on IEPs. It's pretty much across the board. I would say that most of our students are kinesthetic learners, even though there's a lot of combination, but they learn best by hands-on activities. Our students are dedicated, very dedicated to our program. We instill a responsibility to the class that it's their class, that we teach them, but it's really what they want to learn. And we focus our entire class on their interests, and that changes year to year, and it could change semester to semester. But we kind of allow the students to guide slightly their learning process, even though we're following our content standards, and we're making sure that we are, that we're teaching all of the skills that we need to teach, but we actually find where their interest kind of lies, and then we kind of gear those to them. So it seems like our program is constantly changing year to year to year, but we notice our program is growing by doing that. But the broad spectrum of students that we have in the program, being, with all the different makeups of students, not only in socioeconomic, but race and, their learning, how they learn, all brings in a level of gifts to the program that is just amazing. And how well that they will learn to work together as a team and build the strengths from each other. So, we're always so proud of those, just watching the dynamic of the group.
That's amazing. That is amazing. It sounds like things are going really well there.
Yeah.
And so can you elaborate a little bit more on, so if a student, how do you get a pulse from the students in the beginning of the year, or at whatever point you do that, to determine what they're interested in and then incorporate that into your teaching? How do you do that?
We start at the very beginning of the year, really getting to know our students. We think that's probably one of the most important things you can do, because that begins to build the trust. So it's more than a name and what school are you from, and okay, you joined Culinary. But you have to know, why did they join Culinary? Is it because they were looking for a group to belong to? Do they seriously have an interested in the program? Where do they live? Do they live with their mom, their dad, their guardian? Are they in a shelter of some sort? What is their home life like? Who are their friends? What are their activities? Do they have activities? Do they work outside the home? We really spend a lot of time making them feel comfortable, not judgmental. We have them do like a little thing in the beginning where they write down what their interests are, like where do they see themselves in the program, what do they see themselves doing. But then we start meeting with them like one-on-one, because that's how you engage a lot of times with that student. Sometimes it takes time to really figure out, especially with level 1, where their interests, because we have to teach so many of the basic skills first. But by that time, since we start off with those basic skills and we keep building and we keep progressing in the content, by the end of their level 1 year, we can really kind of gauge, their interests really lies, like they really like to work on serving the community, or like we also know the student, so we know what their skills are. We know how they're learning best. Do they work well in a team, or do they work more well want individually? Do they work better with the community, or do they work better like in the back of the house? But they try all of our different stations. They get to do all of that type of learning experiences. But in that time, we're talking to them, and we're talking about their weaknesses and their strong points. But again, it's in a non-judgmental way. So they're not feeling like, oh, I've messed up. It's because it's not about that. It's okay to mess up, and it's okay to learn. That's one way of learning, is by making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to make that student feel comfortable, you have to know about them. Like, you have to know their background. You have to know what makes them tick. And just gaining that trust is huge in that first year.
And you run a restaurant as well?
We do. We have a restaurant. It's called Joshua's. So we don't open that restaurant until probably mid-October, the end of October. So, it's our level 2 or seniors. We start them way quicker, and they're making product, and we're kind of selling that to whoever will buy it. Our level 1, we don't open that restaurant because it takes so much time to build up their skill level, safety wise, and we have to teach like this certification program. It's all about pathogens and cleanliness, and all the health department rules, plus the safety in the back. So all of that has to be taught prior to the restaurant opening. So
how many how long during the day do you have your students?
We have the English is included in our program. So we have English, and then we have the students for about an hour and a half. So and that's Monday through Friday. So it's approximately 2 hours per day that we have them Monday through Friday. So we have them for a big chunk of time, which is also, I think, I don't know if all career programs are the same. In our 6th district program, they all are. We have them for that big block. But that really helps in getting to know the students, because we're not transitioning we have them for a half a day, and then they go to their home school, and then we have our second group for the other half of the day. So it's a pretty good chunk of time.
Okay. And is the restaurant execution built into that time as well then?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. So looking forward, or let's just talk about the spring. So like all of us, we went from everyday execution, doing what we know, to overnight becoming online instructors. And I could see via your awesome social media marketing that you continued to do what you could in this online environment. And first, before we get into the details, just as a teacher, how did you feel? Like, what were your feelings? Did you have any anxieties about making the transition from being so hands-on to being so, far away from your kids?
Yeah, I would say it was awful. When you have your kids every day, and then you go from every day to not seeing them, and you become like their surrogate parent. I mean, because their mental health, their physical health, so it was very difficult. It was very difficult as a teacher, and it was very difficult for the students. I think they rose to the occasion. I think we managed to get through it. But it was very difficult. Just to, you thought maybe go back, and then all that, you're not going back. And so now you are like, especially with our level 2 students, we've had 2 years together. And, this is when we transition down, and we do fun activities, and we kind of have our goodbye. So it definitely was very hard, but.
Right. And I know you powered through it and did the best that you possibly could.
You don't have a choice. You just got to keep going.
Right. What were some of the initial steps that you took in that transition?
So we set up Google. We didn't use Google. We typically do not use Google Classroom just because most of our learning is hands-on. But we set up Google Classroom, a Zoom, like we did Zoom accounts, and we did Remind, like we had Remind throughout the year, but we only utilized it on occasion. So we made sure that each student had access to the Remind, and we got everybody as much as we could on Google Classroom. We started the Zoom, and then we basically, the very first lesson was just really kind of basic, just to get everybody on. Can we get, make sure that everybody has technology, because that was the other problem. A lot of our students do not have technology. They don't have Wi-Fi. They don't have laptops. A lot of them have phones, but like we had a student who was living in a shelter. They don't have Wi-Fi. They don't have, it was just, how can we reach these students in doing a lesson when they don't have the capabilities at home to do anything? So we had to work through some of that, and we had to be creative and flexible, was probably huge. So like our student who was living in a shelter, her phone she didn't have a laptop. She had a phone, but it didn't have Wi-Fi access, and she couldn't access Google Classroom or Remind. So I would have to call her mother. And this took weeks of time. This wasn't like, overnight. Like we lost track of her, and I knew that she was in a shelter. So I was reaching out to her homeschool weekly. We were reaching out to her friends, like, have you heard? Can you have her contact? So after weeks of not hearing from this student, we were able to get a number for her mother, and we did every assignment verbally. Mm-hmm. So, you kind of just had to do what you had to do. She was an A student in my class. She's, a great student, just her family fell on hard times. This should not define her. This going online was not a defining factor of what she knows. So thankfully, I spoke with my administrator, and I'm like, I'm going to have to be a little bit creative. I'm not going to have documentation, but I'm going to have verbal. So it's all going to be verbal. So we went through every assignment that we posted, and we just had her verbally describe what she would do. Another student whose mom had lost her job was working. So a lot of our students were working, and that was the other thing. Our kids went from working like a few evenings a week to being the essential workers. They were working 40, 50, 60 hours in the grocery stores and in nursing homes because the adults were staying home. So that was the other problem. We're not going to, their work sometimes would be the assignment. So that would be a hands-on assignment. So I would be talking to students at sometimes 11 o'clock at night. Because that's the only time I could reach them, because they would come home from work. They would be kind of up, then they would sleep during the day. Mm-hmm. So, we were putting assignments on weekly. We would put assignments on Monday, like by Monday, we would have an assignment, and that assignment had we would provide many different things, so that we would try to do a cooking assignment if we could. But sometimes you couldn't get the product because they would only be going to the grocery store once every couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. So we did put a lot of assignments on. So here's what's coming. So if you go to the grocery store, you can get all this type of product. But if you can't get the product, here's some other choices. You can make, you might be able to do like a research project on something, a chef or cooking cuisine. We had a lot of different topics that they could do. Most do not want to do that, by the way. Most want to cook. So I would say we only had like one or two do the theory type assignments. Everybody did some type of cooking assignment, even though they may not have been able to get all the products that they needed, but it was whatever. It was whatever you could do. But it worked. In the end, it worked. We did trial a online learning with our level 1 where it showed videos of different things, like let's say ice carving. Like, so we would do like a video of like it would be a video of ice carving, then questions after that. So we did try that just in case we have to do something like that next year. And that worked. That was actually pretty successful too for some of the students. They didn't mind watching they did not want to do research. Research of any type was out. But if they could do a hands-on cooking assignment, great. And they love when I show them off. So if they send me pictures all the time, and I would show them off because they love that. But the online video with the questions was doable. And we were able to complete a ServSafe certification, the food handler, it was free. And they all did it. They all managed to do it except for one who couldn't get on. But
okay.
We tried.
When you were having students cook at home, were the families responsible for buying the product then?
At this, yes. We would tell them that, like, whatever your family was having for dinner that night, maybe you could prepare it. Or use whatever was in your pantry. What is in your refrigerator? What do you have? That really didn't be a problem. Now, we did discuss like next year if we are allowed to purchase product and then because, obviously you're very limited to what the students can do. I mean, they may, you want them to make a homemade product versus something out of a box. And they did fairly well with doing that, but they don't have the equipment that we would have in our kitchen. Like they don't have sharp knives. They don't have maybe some of the, like the different pans and stuff. So they were making do. So we would have a knife cut assignment, you could tell, but they were doing their best and that's okay. That's another issue that we would have to think about is can we sign out that type of equipment next year? Can we give them a chef knife? Can we give them a cutting board? Stuff like that. But
was there a difference in the response that you got from the quality of work or just the motivation of the students between year 1 and year 2? Did you see any divergence or was it pretty similar to the groups?
I would say we had a harder time. Both levels did a very good job of completing all of their assignments if they had access to, their computers and stuff. We did lose track of like 1 or 2 in each level. And they just fell off the board. We couldn't, no matter what we did, we couldn't reach them. We tried. And we reached out to their home schools. We would reach out to them. It was just, they were lost. And if we were in school, they would have been there. But now that when we didn't, they were just off the grid.
Okay.
But I would say both levels were pretty good at turning in assignments. Some better than others, or some that we had to keep reaching out, haven't heard from you. Right. And, eventually they would turn things in. If it was late, we didn't care. I mean, we cared, but, we just wanted them to turn in the assignments. Because, staying connected is part of online. You have to stay connected with this because, when you're connected with them every day and then all of a sudden you're not connected with them every day, I think it's easy for them to forget. And plus they're doing other classes. We're not the only one. Right. So they're trying to, everybody's doing Zoom meetings here, there, and everywhere. So sometimes it was conflicting with other classes. And we had one student who they said they were online like all day, just doing assignments for all of their classes. And it was proving to be difficult. But we managed to get through it.
Okay. Yeah, I find this sounds stupid, but I would post a question of the day every day via Google Classroom. And sometimes it was content related and sometimes it was just silly. Sometimes it was, how are you feeling today? And they got points for it, like really small amount of points.
Right.
But it allowed us to have a dialogue in a very small way every day. And so I commented on, now I happen to have, 80 some kids. So I was commenting all day like, oh, hey, that's cool. That's a great idea. Or, oh, you did what with your mom over Mother's Day? That's fantastic. You know,
Right,
just
right,
like it is. CTE is all about the relationships, and
right.
go from that to nothing. It doesn't work well.
No. Our
So
Zoom meetings were the same. Like our Zoom meetings were not meant for learning purposes. They were meant for questions. They were meant for, health checks. Are you okay? What do you need? Are your families okay? It was about just saying hello and keeping that connection versus in a learning time. Again, next year we have to still keep that. I don't know what it'll look like, but in order for our programs to be successful, you have to stay connected.
right. Now, were your Zoom meetings required?
No, they weren't really required. We had to connect with our students every week. But I felt that our students bond with each other because we're with each other for so long, that bonding, in order to keep that bond in place, to at least try to have a weekly meeting. And we did have students, and they enjoyed seeing each other and whatever, talking. So they didn't really make it a requirement, but I think it was highly suggested that we reach out to them somehow. I know that there's like lots of teachers use the Google Meets. We found that Zoom was a little bit better, so we stuck with that.
Okay, very good. Thinking about the future, and I know that you and I are probably in agreement that we want to be back in the classroom.
Yes, much so.
But because your program and all of our CTE programs are about relationships and building that trust. Have you given any thought about how you might develop relationships, especially with your year ones next year?
Yeah.
Remote environment.
We had a Zoom meet and greet last week with our incoming students. We sent letters out to them just, because we usually have an in-person time. Couldn't do that. So we did do a Zoom meeting, and just so that they know that we're here to ask, tell them, just about the programs, what to expect, that we're here for you. It's just, we're just going to have to wait and see what's going to happen. We're hoping that we are at least in the classroom half the time. And if that's the case, it'll be all lab oriented. We're not going to do any theory related work during that time. We'll just save that for the online part. But I suppose we're going to do the best we can. I think I worry about that if we do not have any type of in-classroom, that it's going to be very difficult because, we're lab oriented. I'm hoping that we at least have a couple days a week.
How will you address if the 6-foot social distance rule is still in effect?
Yeah, we're just going to have to utilize the whole restaurant and rotate around. We can spread out pretty well, except that if we're teaching on the equipment, we're going to have to rotate through that. I would say sanitation wise, we do that anyways.
Right.
That's part of restaurant industry. And even before we had shut down, we had students who were wiping down all the door handles, all the, most touch surfaces. So that can be integrated very easily. So I'm not worried about the sanitation side of things. And we will manage the 6-foot distancing if that's what it's required. And even if it requires a rotation of some sort into the front of the house, back of the house. And we have a pretty large area, so we'll just have to make it work.
I'm just curious, like, how do you teach knife or cutting skills from 6 feet away? But
we're going to make it work. We're going to be positive.
We're going to have very large magnifying glasses that we're all going to be wearing on our faces. Wait, no, it's your finger. Don't cut. Don't cut. That's your
I
finger.
know, yeah, we're just gonna wing it. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna do whatever it takes.
When it sounds like you figured it out during this period of time, I mean, you guys were calling people and having lessons over the phone and all that, which was quite amazing. Is there something that you did during this online learning that didn't work that you would be like, man, I'm not going to do that again?
Well, we tried to do, there was one thing that we did, like a research, like where they were researching, and it was not, nope. I mean, if we put a topic out, luckily it wasn't like it was the one assignment that we had put a few videos and we had said research, like a chef, and like nobody did it. I mean, or it was like, not, some people did it, but like half the class, they were not engaged in it. It did not interest them. So, I mean, we are gonna have to keep that very, it has to be, if it's not interesting to them, they're not gonna do it. So.
And probably super hyper this in that kind of an environment too, right? Like you could probably integrate that into if we were in traditional classrooms, and
right.
You might see the same level of success as you would in other things, but I think they are probably all saying uncle too, like, okay.
Yeah. And they're doing it for other classes. I mean, that's typically not a type of assignment. We'll give that type of an assignment periodically, but it's usually work on it for 15 to 20 minutes every day when you first come into class. And then we transition to a hands-on activity. When you're done with your hands-on activity, go back and work on your research project. So it's not like you're just sitting at home and working on it for a weekly assignment. It's like kind of like slow moving, and it kind of, they can get it all done during the week, but it's not like every day because they're going back and forth doing what they enjoy doing. But I mean, that still may happen. I mean, it may still, depending on how much time we have with them, they still might have to do small, but it's going to have to be I definitely have to like give less broad of an assignment and way narrow it down. Because a broad assignment, it definitely needs to be chunked a little bit versus go at it.
Right. Yeah. And I think that is true of everybody who's watching this video too. Like, yeah, they need that really defined objective, and here's how I'm going to be evaluated, and here's what my expectations are. And I don't know if that's due to lack of creativity, or we've kind of done that to them with all these rubrics and everything too.
Yeah. Right.
They want to meet the objective, but it has to be very, very, very well defined. So
right,
we are all in the boat with you, trying to figure out how to paddle through that. Is there one or more things that you did during this transition period that, yep, it's going to be, if life is still chaotic in the fall, this is going to be something that you definitely continue to do?
Some things worked. Like when we did the different, like we were doing this whole, they were supposed to take their manager exam. It didn't happen because we had ended 1 week prior to when they were supposed to be testing. So then I had to flip it and do like a down version, but it was online and it happened to be free at the time. And they were successful with it. They all finished it, and I was shocked because it was more like I gave them a week to do it, and kids were like, this is taking us 3, 4, 5 hours, but they completed it. And they didn't really complain about it hugely. But I was pretty excited that they all did it. So I think that, things can be successful. Like that worked. I may have to do that again in the fall. We've talked about doing that. Like the online videos, the platform that we used, that worked. The kids seem engaged in learning about, like we didn't like the ice carving, that's one example, but we picked like some different like learning objectives that necessarily are not what we normally would teach in the classroom, because we don't teach ice carving, but it was different.
Right.
You know, it was different, but it was enough to keep their attention. They enjoyed learning about it. So, you know, those things kind of worked. So our plan is to keep those going. You know, more like visual type learning. If we can do hands-on type learning, we're going to keep that. We're going to do less of the boring research type stuff. We're going to try to, if we can incorporate the standards different ways, that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, and it sounds like you're still the same teacher, right? Like you're still, I'm going to do with the kids, the students are still driving the curriculum, and you're still allowing them to drive the curriculum. And that's fantastic. That's why you are an amazing teacher. So
you are too. It's good seeing you.
We're going to wrap this up from the recording standpoint. Don't hang up on me. Any kind of last lessons that you learned through this, or anything you'd like to share with this group of people who are watching this video?
You know, when I first started, when I was taking these classes, I was terrified. I was terrified if I was going to be able to handle it. But it's amazing. You're teaching because you love the kids. You love what you do. And it's amazing how you just kind of do it. It falls into place and you figure it out. And you don't always have to be perfect. And things don't have to work. If they don't work, you scratch it and you tell the kids, all right, that didn't work out so well. So let's try something new. And that happens all the time. It's all about just keep trying, being flexible, trying different things. Don't stay in a groove. Keep learning. Even with your learning alongside your students, they know that, and it's okay to tell them that, you know what, that didn't work out so well, so we're going to try something different. So, and they're good with that. I can take ownership of my mistakes, but that teaches them that they can too. So yeah, hang on, you're going to do a great job.
Well, thank you, Tracy Lee, Teacher of the Year.
No, you are though.
And all right, so I'm going to end the video here. Tracy, you hang on my real quick.
Okay.